Good morning. My name is Leslie Polgar, and my pronouns are he and him. Preparing for the unexpected. Well, there was something unexpected this morning over my early morning coffee from the Sunday Funnies. It's Pearls Before Swine, and it was really good. It made me feel humble because in 20 seconds of reading, he covered everything I had to say today. So check out Pearls Before Swine. I call preparing for the unexpected Plan B. All in all, I was never a big fan of Plan B, suspecting that having a Plan B would compromise my focus on making Plan A successful. I am not at all sure why I used Plan B as my working title. Perhaps it was about living in dangerous times when a Plan B is supposedly useful. But there was another, more personal reason. Witnessing the aging of friends and experiencing it, and being asked about Plan B for late life. Making friends by serving on committees both here at MDUUC and in our denomination, the Unitarian Universalist Association, for a couple of decades, and more recently with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the UUSC, is something Sue and I continue to treasure. We met John and Susan of the mainline UU congregation of Devon, Pennsylvania, through our work together on the President's Council of the UUA. During a Zoom conversation not long ago, they told us they were selling their lovely home and were planning to move into a villa at a continuing care center, even though they did not yet need care. Then they asked us, what's your Plan B? Plan B? We had none, although since then we created one. For some of us who came of age during the 1960s, during the Vietnam War, Plan B was something to consider if one's draft lottery number was low. Destination Canada was a popular Plan B, and I can assure you that the lure of those elegant Royal Canadian Mounted Police uniforms, nor becoming a lumberjack, nor the prospects of playing ice hockey, that wasn't the lure. But I didn't need a Plan B then. I had a student deferment as a PhD physics student. It was funded by the Office of Naval Research and NASA. But by 1968, such deferments became problematic. So soon I improvised a sort of Plan B, making babies. But this was just a new Plan A to replace its obsolete predecessor. At first, I found my chosen topic for today to be really vexing. I grew desperate enough to enlist the help of AI, artificial intelligence. And so I asked ChatGPT for help. Does making a Plan B compromise having a good Plan A? I queried. It responded with admirable cogency. Here it is, and I quote, "Having a Plan B does not necessarily compromise having a good Plan A. In fact, having a backup plan can often enhance the overall quality of your primary plan by providing flexibility, resilience, and peace of mind," end of quote. It even provided 5 specific examples. I found this to be very spooky. Happily, this theme finally came together, and it did not rely at all on ChatGPT. So here's the one and only real Plan B I ever had. It was in senior year of high school when I was named the principal appointee to the U.S. Air Force Academy by my Republican Congresswoman, Frances P. Bolton, Ohio, 22nd District. Alas, neither she nor the 22nd District exists any longer. But I had genuinely good reason to suspect that my eyesight would keep me out. My acuity was good, about 20/15, uncorrected, in each eye. Just not both eyes simultaneously. You see, I lack binocular vision. At my pre-admission physical at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, the ophthalmology flight surgeon somberly informed me, "Sorry, son, there is no way you're going to the Air Force Academy." It was on January 6th, 1961, my own private January 6th, exactly 60 years before that more important and very public January 6th. My plan B was to attend the University of Michigan, and I'm happy to say it worked out pretty well. I met Sue in the middle of freshman year, got a decent education in physics and mathematics, and a great education in humanities and social sciences. Literature and history are filled with advice about plans, both A and B, and their futility. The 18th century Scottish poet Robert Burns wrote, "The best laid plans o' mice and men gang after glee," and you know the rest of it. A century later, Prussian Field Marshal Helmut von Moltke observed, in fact, that no plan survives contact with the enemy. Yet my dismay at our current polarized state and my uncertainty about this year's elections prompted me to think about a plan B should we have to face a repeat of 4 years of orange-headed leadership supported by red MAGA caps. Should I apply for citizenship in Hungary? As a native of Budapest, it is available to me and to my family. Nah, I'm not going to jump out of the frying pan and into the fire. Sorry, Mr. Orban. No matter what happens between now and Inauguration Day on January 20th, 2025, we're staying put and not moving, even to Canada. You see, I consider America already great, despite its historical and current lapses. And I think that most immigrants and wannabe immigrants share that view. But we, all of us, blue state and red state, can make it even better. Last Monday, March 18th, Gerard Baker wrote a disturbing and perceptive op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled, "America is not Nazi Germany, but it looks a lot like 1933. Thankfully, he noted the great differences between the Weimar Republic then and our republic today. But then he wrote this, and I quote, "With time comes a more subtle appreciation of the enduring universalities of political culture. The interwar Germans and their leaders were not another species. They were ordinary men and women, and it is their very ordinariness they shared and still share with the rest of us that should terrify us. It is for the banality of their evil, in Hannah Arendt's words, that many of these otherwise normal people must be understood. To regain my bearings and to cope with the turbulence that may lie ahead, I decided on 2 tactics. Perhaps you might find them useful to you too. I call them Plan A1 and A2, but if you want to call them Plan B, that's okay. The first is to focus on what is positive about this United States of ours and to leave both the concept of American carnage of the right and victimhood of the left behind. This tactic came from 2 sources, one personal experience and the other from books. In a 40-year business career spanning multiple cultures and people, employees, investors, customers, and suppliers, from Taiwan and Japan to Germany and Scotland, with a few other stops in between, I learned that emphasizing the present mess we found ourselves in was utterly useless. Rather, what motivated people was to focus on what we could do plausibly together in the future. We cannot be inspired by the heavens above if we are content to stare at our shoes. The second source came from the many books of history and biography I have read since the pandemic began 4 years ago. From these, I learned that we have been in many crises in our 247 years as a nation, most notably, of course, the Civil War. Although sometimes painfully slowly, we rebounded from these. The most useful of these books is Peter Canellis's 2021 biography, The Great Dissenter. It's the story of John Marshall Harlan, America's judicial hero. Born into the Gilded Age, he became a Supreme Court justice in 1877 and served until 1911, 34 years. And he was a man of seemingly intractable contradictions, some of which echo to this day. He was born into a prominent slave-holding family. Yet he supported the Union, served in the Union Army, and recruited the 10th Kentucky Infantry to its service. He opposed the Emancipation Proclamation. Yet Harlan was the only dissenter from the Supreme Court's notorious Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896 that came to be known as separate but equal. Many of his dissents would become the law of this land via opinions of the Supreme Court more than a half-century later. My second tactic is to focus on our unity as humans and not as owners of a list of group identities. I question whether such a list is pertinent, let alone useful. Yes, each of us has a list of attributes, labels, categories. Here's the start to mine: white, cisgendered male, Eastern European, Jew, immigrant, educated, privileged, and so on. Of course, these labels intersect, thus forming, guess what? Pigeonholes. This is stereotyping, bordering on profiling, and it is certainly pigeonholing. But the only thing I find suitable for pigeonholes are either pigeons or snail mail. Each of us is much more than the sum of our parts, these identities. For me, this is an implied UU value, both in the current version and in the proposed new Article 2 that is up for vote at this June's all-virtual General Assembly, GA. By the way, that's our first all-virtual GA. And it is the UU idea of a very big, broad tent. It is captured well in our song, Draw the Circle Wide. At yesterday's reception to celebrate stewardship and generosity here in Borton Fellowship Hall, you have pledged, yes? Reverend Leslie summed up this idea even better. We, our thriving MDUUC, are in one of the very few places where people build community across differences. Build community across differences. Funny thing about Plan B, I was born Jewish and bar mitzvahed, so for me, Unitarian Universalism was just Plan B. And as Sue said in the UU marketing video a few decades back, Voices of a Liberal Faith, you can find it on YouTube, we came for our kids, but we stayed for ourselves. So what started as my Plan B became my Plan A. May it remain so. Shalom.